Is Gulliver's Travels a science fiction novel? My name is Jason, and I am setting out on a quest to read through the history of the sci-fi novel. And today we are making our very first stop on this journey with Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Now, Gulliver's Travels originally released in 1726. In the book, we follow surgeon and sea captain Lemuel Gulliver as he goes on various adventures. The book is divided into 4 parts. First of these parts is easily the most famous, as we see Gulliver washed ashore and taken prisoner by a race of tiny people, each of which stands about 6 inches tall. In the second part, we see essentially the opposite happen as he is washed ashore on an island of giants, at least compared to him. In the third part, he is rescued by scientists living on a flying island. These scientists are devoted to mathematics, music, art, the sciences, but are really bad at using them in any practical ways. One man is trying to extract sunlight from a cucumber. And in the fourth part, he finds himself in a land that is ruled over by a race of talking horses. These horses are the rulers of deformed creatures called yahoos, which Gulliver notes strongly resemble humans. I think the most interesting thing about this book is that everything I just described to you would be right at home in a grand fantasy adventure. But Gulliver encounters all of these wondrous things in a very disinterested and analytical way. He often skips past any sense of shock or awe and jumps right to taking measurements and keeping notes. Seriously, there are so many measurements in this book. He measures everything. There's an entire section where the tiny people of the first island are taking things out of his coat, and he just gives us a full inventory. And we don't need to know any of it. It's not important later on. This book just loves an info dump. But I think this analytical approach to all of these encounters is a big reason why this book is considered one of the first science fiction novels. Gulliver wants to know how things work, why they work, and how all of it is connected. He is an explorer and a documentarian of these places he visits. And what's more is that the book often is exploring the nature of science, even if sometimes it is satirizing those scientific elements. At times, the book is also surprisingly raunchy and graphic, especially for the year it was published. In the Land of the Giant People, for example, Gulliver goes into great detail to explain the naked bodies of the giants. And in doing so, he determines that people are kind of gross. Also in the Land of the Giants, he is seated on a woman's nipple as a joke. In the Land of the Tiny People, he puts out a fire by peeing on it. And one of the scientists on the Sky Island is trying to find a way to turn excrement back into food. Which makes sense because despite being incredibly popular at its time, it was also called blasphemous by many. Seeing the way that Gulliver visits these places and learns all about their people and culture and customs, I couldn't help but compare this to Doctor Who, because it does have a similar feel. In all 4 parts, Gulliver is a lost explorer, but rather than run away screaming from these wild lands, he digs his feet in and starts to learn. That being said, Doctor Who is a much more fun and whimsical way to tell a story like this. Gulliver's Travels, for all of its fantastical wonderment, is actually one of the driest books I've ever read. It is slow and tedious and makes traveling to these captivating lands feel like a chore. But I think that's because Jonathan Swift did not mean this to be a whimsical sci-fi tale, he meant it to be a political satire. It just so happens that in trying to satirize all of human nature, he accidentally wrote one of the very first science fiction books. I am very excited about this new sci-fi reading project. Next up, I'll be checking out the short story Micromega by Voltaire, and after that, we'll be jumping into Frankenstein. Have you read Gulliver's Travels, and do you think it's a sci-fi book? And what other books do you think should be a part of this journey? Let me know in the comments.